Now, the head of economics at Wits University says government finances run the risk of hitting a fiscal cliff by 2030. He argues that the public sector wage bill, which is government's single largest expenditure, and social grants spending need to be contained to avoid such a scenario. But there are concerns wage demands by public sector unions of over 10% will put government coffers in an unmanageable position.
The professor says a fiscal cliff scenario in South Africa is that where total government spending on public service wages and social grants alone equate or overshoot government revenue. When that happens, other pressing priorities like investment in infrastructure and delivery of basic services would effectively receive no money. And by that time, the ratings agencies would long have placed our bonds in junk territory, making it almost impossible to borrow money for development on international markets. According to IMF data, South Africa's compensation to civil servants stands at above 12% of GDP, substantially higher than other emerging countries in its league. Based on his calculations, Professor Rousseau says the government can barely afford inflation-related increases.
In the current economic environment, the civil service remuneration increase should be inflation plus 1 percentage point, not more than that. Less if at all possible, on condition that there will be no more new government departments, there will be no increase in the size of government, there will be no promotions and no further growth in civil service employment.
But for negotiators mandated by the workers to get the best deal for their circumstances, a 1 percentage point increase above inflation doesn't sit well.
The majority of the people that are working in government are not affording life, in that some of them are not even able to build a house or afford a subsidy that would give them a shelter. And that's the reason why we say we do not necessarily agree with him on those bases.
Selematila says government could cut down the wage bill by culling unnecessary management layers and instead investing more in frontline personnel who are lesser paid, thereby improving service delivery. All parties want to avoid a strike, particularly in education, which would adversely affect learners. But it will take a lot for a meeting of minds, given government's current offer of 4.8%, while public sector's workers demand a rise of 10%. Nomphumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.